Hello, everyone. I have a question for you. Do you know how to replace a front axle shaft on a front-wheel drive car? If not, then this speech is for you. Sometimes in life, things can break or fail. And when it comes to vehicles, it is never fun when this happens. So if you do ever encounter a problem with your front axles, then you'll know what to do, how to do it, and what you'll need to complete the job. Now you might be asking yourself, well, am I a reliable source? And to that, I say yes. I'm currently a second-year automotive student at Vincennes University, and I have replaced at least 4 different front axle shafts on multiple different vehicles. Because of this, I would know a thing or two about doing the task. So let's get into the details about this repair. So first things first, you're going to need tools. Now, here's a list on screen of some of the basic stuff as well as some of the more advanced or preferable things you might want. So yeah, I mean, just whatever you got, use that. Some things are necessary though. So yeah. Now, what I encourage you to do is to research how to do it on your vehicle. Because problems may arise or there might be a specific task that needs done specific to your vehicle. And it's just so much, I highly encourage you to watch videos, just do research on how to do it. That will make it go so much better and will ultimately be the safest option. So now, the first step, raise the vehicle. You're going to do this using a jack. And once you raise it by either the front solid frame or the wheels on the side, like kind of shown in the picture, you're going to want to put jack stands under like the frame or the welds, and then you can move your jack out. That's just to secure it and make sure your car doesn't fall. It's just you need to do it, really. It's a must. And for jack stands, I have a picture of them with the jack in the previous slide. So now, after you have raised the vehicle and it is secure, you can begin removing the wheel. To do that, you can use a tire iron, which I have in the picture here, but you can use a breaker bar if you have one. I have a picture of that over there on the other slide. And you could also use an impact if you also have one. But for right now, I'm just going with basic tools that people would have pretty much with them. So it's a tire iron. Just to take off the wheel lugs, take the wheel off, and you're good to begin it. So now it is time to move on to the suspension components. Sorry. So as you can see here, I have a picture of what you should remove first, and that is the stabilizer link from the stabilizer bar. Now I have an arrow going to the stabilizer bar to just show you what it looks like, as well as the part that you are going to take off. That link, it just bolts on down there. Excuse me. And you might also need to pull it with a pry bar or something. Just however it comes out, the basic layout of them is pretty much the same. It's just there might be some slight differences on vehicles. And then in those other 2 pictures, those are just some link differences. Like for instance, the bottom one, that's what my front stabilizer link looks like, but yours might look like the top picture. It just depends on the car, and the manufacturer of the car. So now, once you have done that, you can start doing the axle nut. Now, for the axle nut, depending on the tool you're using, you can do this on the ground or the air. If you have something like an impact, you can do it in the air. That's fine. It'll come off. But if you're doing it on the ground, if you're not using an impact, I would recommend if you can access the axle nut like through a hole in your wheel, do that and loosen it on the ground before you even raise it up. That'll make your life so much easier. But if you don't have that option, then you can do what I have shown in the slide here. You can put a screwdriver or a punch, just any long, skinny, hard piece of metal into the hole that's usually in the rotors. The rotors, that shiny thing that's around there. And they have vented slots. Just put a screwdriver or just something long and secure in there. And then once that's in there, it's basically you take a breaker bar, or if you don't have a breaker bar, I mean, you really need one for that. it's kind of essential because there's a lot of force on that nut you have to put. So you just take it off in the center there with your breaker bar or impact, whatever you have. And once that's off, you can tap the shaft that is shown there with I would only do it with a rubber tipped hammers like a mallet. If you don't, you could damage the shaft and the nut might not go back on. So that's something you could do. I also have shown that in a video I will reference later in this speech. So after you've tapped that out, gotten it loose, next is the outer tie rod ball joint. Now, in this slide, I have highlighted the tie rod itself, and I have also highlighted the ball joint, which is the thing that you need to take out. There's a nut on the bottom that unscrews. There might be a little pin in there. You can pull that out, and it'll be all right. Now, the ball joint itself, to separate it, is it can be difficult because it can seize up in there, it can rust. It just depends. So I'd recommend taking some penetrating oil, PB Blast, WD-40, something like that, and then taking a pry bar and putting it in a secure place that's not the tie rod because you don't want to bend that, and a hammer. Again, probably a rubber tipped one, but if you want to like smack on the side of the top of that ball joint, you can with a metal hammer. It won't really hurt it. And you just got to keep doing that, working it until it will come out. It might be difficult. Just give it some time. It will come out. Now, after that, what you can do is, yeah, you can just take that out. And after that, basically just, I mean, that's basically what you need to do before taking the axle out. So after that, pretty much like you can get the axle out. So I've highlighted the axle in this slide, and this is just basically how it would be. I also highlighted the knuckle assembly, which is the thing you'll need to swing either down, left, right, whichever way you can in order to get that axle out. Now, pulling the axle out of the knuckle assembly is difficult. It's going to take a lot of strength and maneuverability to maneuver the knuckle assembly just the right way so that it will come out, but it will come out. It just takes a good amount of strength. And once it's out of the knuckle assembly, all you need to do is take a pry bar and go to the back of the axle where it goes into the transmission, which is by the engine. And you can just pry the part down there, and it'll feel like it won't come, but it will. There's a clip in there that's holding it, and that clip just bends with it, so you don't have to worry about that. Just pry bar it out. It'll eventually come out, and once that's out, your axle's pretty much removed. So, I mean, at that point, you're ready for installation of your new axle. So the process for installation, I mean, it's pretty much just the reverse of removal. However, I would encourage you just to make sure, look it up, just do your research because there could be extra steps that is needed. Same thing goes for obviously just assembly. So yeah, I just recommend you always look at what it says to do or just the proper way to do it. So I mean, pretty much, yeah. And once it's all back together, make sure that your bolts are tight. And if you have a torque wrench, which is shown in the tools section of this slideshow, you can find the torque spec for that to make sure it's tight to the proper specification. Now, if you don't have that, because I understand not everyone has those, you can just tighten them up. Just tighten them up nice and tight, especially the axle nut. Make sure that's nice and tight, and make sure your lug nuts are nice and tight. You can find lug nut specifications online. I mean, you just make sure they're pretty tight. Don't impact them. No, if you have an impact, do not impact the lug nuts. Just tighten them up with a breaker bar or ratchet, something like that. And you should be okay. But I'd obviously recommend a torque wrench, but I understand not everyone has those. So, I mean, once everything's back together and tight, torqued, whichever, I mean, you successfully completed the replacement. And I would make sure to just double check everything, make sure to double check the components, make sure everything looks good. It looks like how it started before you disassembled it. Take pictures. I also advise that too. And you should also double check things are tight, because it can mean the difference between a broken vehicle and a fixed one. I mean, you also need to make sure you're not missing things. So just go over everything, make sure it's all done correctly. So that'll just be worth the time. Trust me. So I mean, yeah, you're pretty much done and you've completed a successful axle replacement. I mean, good job. So I do hope that this presentation was informative and helped you better understand how to replace your axles. Everything I just showed you, from the tools needed to raising the vehicle, removing the suspension components, and removing the axle itself, is basically how you do it on most vehicles. However, like I said, there will be exceptions. So again, I cannot stress this enough. I encourage you to do your own research, watch as many videos as you can find, look up things, just be very thorough in your research. And like I said earlier, there is a video on YouTube that I would encourage you to watch. It is called How to Replace a Front Wheel Drive Axle. It's by Eric the Car Guy. It's about 12 years old, if I remember right. Now he has 2 videos. One of them includes changing ball joints, but in this repair, if you don't need to do it, you don't need to watch that video. Just watch the video that I have just mentioned. That is a good reference. It shows things in a much better way than I can show here. It's just a good video. So again, just do your research and have fun, be safe. Again, have as much fun as you can. I understand it's not always fun in a car, but just have as much fun as you can. Be safe. Don't get frustrated. That'll just make you do worse at the repair. And just remember, safety is a priority when it comes to working on anything, especially vehicles. So I hope that you found this informative. Thank you.